Welcome back to GG33 Studios, live in the best location in the nation in Sunny Isles. Today we have Hassan with us. And brother, we're just going to get right down to it. Who the hell are you and what are you doing here?
I'm a lawyer that deeply loves Islam. I believe it has solutions to a lot of the problems society is facing. It actually shaped my law firm. We do an ethical practice. And I'm excited to explore the conversations with you, man.
So there is such a thing as ethical lawyers?
On rare occasion.
Okay. So you're in the minority.
I'm in the minority.
I got you.
I think so.
So Hassan, the reason you're here is we're going to discuss Islam, but this is not going to be the typical conversation where, I'm an atheist and you have to prove God exists. No, we're not going to do that because I believe there's a higher power. So we're not going that route. Amen. I'm also not going the route where it says we are all gods and I just have to do something to power up all my chakras and then I will be a god. We're not going there either.
Good.
That would be a subject for another day with people with much lower intelligence. You got to throw some shade at people.
Sure.
Always got to throw that shade.
Sure.
But what I do want to discuss with you is this almighty, by the way, I admit I am nothing. I admit God is all powerful. Is this almighty benevolent? That's what I want to discuss. And we'll get into a lot of other things, but what would you say, just for a quick argument, and we'll go back to this at the very end, how would you look at all the suffering that goes on in this world, from hunger to theft to rape to pedophilia, and say God is benevolent? Maybe he's just neutral.
No, I definitely believe God is benevolent. The only way we can come to know God, we can come to know that he exists through our rational mind, through our intellect, through thinking. But to actually know how God is, that's where we have to turn to his revelation. I don't believe that there's an all-powerful creator that created us and left us without revelation, without a way to know him, without a way to connect with him. And when you study the holy text, the Quran is the only book that claims to be from God that was never changed in all of history.
You believe a illiterate man who was 40 years old, and I could get the age wrong, wrote the Quran?
Well, I don't believe he wrote the Quran, no, because he was illiterate. He was 40 years old, known to have never said a lie, known to be a man of principle and integrity, and he could not read or write, and yet he gave humanity, which we believe it was revealed to him from God, the most eloquent moral code for all humanity to live by. I don't believe he could have written it.
I believe I believe in the law of the code. We've talked about this.
Correct.
We'll go into this further. But what I don't really believe is in fairy tales. How does an illiterate man write the most, so again,
because it's from God. That's the point. He couldn't have done it. There's no way Muhammad could have written the Quran. I don't believe he wrote the Quran. And the thing is, I know half the Quran by heart. When I studied it from my teacher, studied from his teacher, studied from his teacher, from the Prophet Muhammad in an unbroken chain. So I know it's true. I got friends in Africa, in Kenya, in Gambia. They know the Quran by heart. They all have their own independent chain of transmission going back to the Prophet with the same message. It's too powerful. It's too eloquent. It's too factual.
That could just mean it's really good propaganda, and the propaganda spread a long, long way.
Well, listen.
I mean, hold on a second. LGBT was founded in New York and went to San Francisco. Now it's all over the world, including in some Muslim areas.
Right.
So again, if your definition that's spread all over the world, then we could say the same thing about LGBT.
But that it was preserved and unchanged. And what is the message? The message is that there is one God, and that you cannot come close to God if you don't honor his creation, if you don't treat his creation with mercy, with justice, with morality, with ethics, if you don't preserve the family, if you don't stand up for justice. That it's a beautiful universal message.
I agree with everything he says. So just so people understand, I'm not a liberal debating that.
Sure.
I agree with everything he says. We're getting to the root issue.
And it's very simple. Now you bring up the problem of evil. I mean, the issue of evil, Islam doesn't have a problem with the evil. God says, I gave you a choice. I've tested you with the choice. Me doing good is only valuable if I have the potential and the ability to do bad. And some people will choose to do bad, and some people will choose to do good. Free will. And there will be suffering. But guess what? The suffering of this world is inconsequential compared to the eternity of the hereafter. Any number.
Is there proof?
Well, you're the numbers guy, right?
Is there proof for what you're saying, though? Or is that just faith?
Look, at the end, faith is what gives weight to our worship. But I believe it's rationally grounded faith. I believe it's the most logical conclusion when you consider all the other alternatives.
Okay. I mean, faith is the one thing you can't argue.
You can't.
Because you either have it or you don't. And as a man of intellect, as a man who, quite frankly, likes to argue,
yes,
there's not much you can do. There's not much wiggle room. Well, so what we can do is we can talk about the reasons people have faith.
We can talk about that, but we can also talk about rational consistency. See, anybody's beliefs, they should be rationally consistent. So, for example, when I say God exists and I define God as infinitely powerful, by definition, he cannot have a need. If you are infinitely powerful, you have no need. I know that's where you and I diverge a little bit, but I would say it is rationally inconsistent, Gary.
I disagree, because when it comes down to what you were saying, humans have free will, angels do not, correct?
Correct.
So if we go by that logic that humans have free will, that means our
worship is more valuable to God.
Exactly.
And
our
I agree with you.
Worship is more valuable to God. So if we're going to that definition that our worship is more valuable to God, that kind of negates what you're saying.
No.
Hold on. It negates what you're saying, because you basically said he doesn't need anything. Well, he actually does need our worship, doesn't he?
No.
Even if it's a piece of candy that's a little bit extra, he needs it. He wants it. Correct?
So this is where I differ with you, my brother. I differentiate between need and want. You can want something without needing it.
Okay.
And you can need something you don't want.
Agreed.
So I believe God.
But does he actually need it? That would be the question.
And I would say no, because by our definition, we say God is El Ghani, the independent of need, free of need. You have decreed that your mercy prevails over your wrath. You know, God doesn't need to show us mercy. In fact, and if he was evil or if he was negative, then we wouldn't be living this life. He could have just created us.
Wait a second. There's plenty of people. I'm living a good life, but I wasn't always.
Sure.
You're living a decent life, but you weren't always.
Right.
So
God tests us.
Everything is yin yang.
Well, he tests us.
Is everything not yin yang in this world?
He tests us in poverty. And he tests us in affluence.
But we have different tests in both realms.
We do. And we each have tests that are tailored, designed for us to see, do we choose him or do we choose our ego? There are people who worship their ego instead of God. There are people who worship wealth. My proposition to you, my brother, is everything we worship aside from the infinite perishes.
I only worship my wife's body.
God bless you. I mean, that's a different kind of worship. Maybe a kind we support.
So I'm just saying, is that allowed by Islam?
Listen,
hold on. Is that allowed by Islam?
I mean, we're using the term worship loosely, but let me just get into it. In the Islamic tradition, when you make love to your wife, that is an act of worship. You may be getting more blessings when you are intimate with your wife than when you're going to pray in the mosque. Believe it or not. Why? Because you're showing love, you're showing affection.
Can you repeat that one more time for the people listening?
In Islam, being intimate with your spouse is an act of worship. It can often be more blessings, more rewarding than even worshiping God alone in the mosque, because your worship just benefits you. But when you're being intimate with your spouse, you're strengthening the family bonds. Family's everything. It's the basis for society. And that's why a lot of these movements, especially in this month of June, are so satanic and destructive. Sorry, I'll say it. I know you don't fear anyone but God, I think, in this. You know, it aims to destroy the family.
I think if you keep promoting that and get a couple ad programs to promote what you just said, you might convert more people to Islam than Andrew Tate.
Well, I think
by saying that, brother.
Yeah, well, I think that's why that's helped him become Muslim. That's why a lot of people are flocking Islam. They want a moral grounding. They realize a hedonistic lifestyle brings no pleasure in the long term. And in the end, what do you accomplish? See, we live this life where we think I can be happy if I have A, B, and C. Maybe a lot of wealth, the nicest car, the nicest house. But the reality is most people struggle their whole life to get that, and many don't. And even when you do, then you got to maintain it, and you start losing. Eventually, you lose your own health. Eventually, everything perishes. The life to hereafter, that's the only eternal life. So we focus on what is to come next.
But that's another thing we disagree on. You don't believe in reincarnation.
No, we don't. We believe you got one test, and you're going to be graded at the end of that examination.
So I would challenge that by saying, based off numerology, there's people who are ones, people who are threes, people who are fours, and all those people have to have different challenges in life. You, my friend, are born on the 5th, correct?
Correct.
Have you traveled quite a bit in life?
I travel a lot, bro. More than I'm home.
So that is basically a quality of the 5th. People who are born on the 5th, they do a lot of traveling. So for me, I believe that every life path basically offers a clue into what our soul's basic destiny needs to be in this lifetime, because it makes more sense to me that as a soul evolves, it has to go through different missions. Just as you grow in the soul in this reincarnation, you go through different steps. I also believe that happens in the numerology and astrology is like kind of the landscape that shows us, okay, one reincarnation, learn these lessons. Next reincarnation, learn these lessons. And baby, like I'm saying, the 5 hit you right away, right? It makes sense to you that you have to travel,
right? Because
that's what you said. So again, to me, it would make sense that reincarnation actually does exist, and you have to go through the life lessons of what all these numbers within this matrix and this virtual reality would mean.
Right.
Tell me why that would be inconsistent with Islam.
With our tradition, we do believe we have a soul. We all witnessed God's greatness before we came down to earth. That's why most people,
Is there proof of that?
Well, even self-proclaimed atheists, a lot of it, when times get tough, when they're out in sea about to drown, they're praying. They're crying out to God. You see this happen again and again.
Does that prove that
I think it's
only the people that need something to start being believers?
I think it's consistent. I think we are pre-programmed to believe in God. I think we're pre-programmed to believe in a higher being.
So what's going on right now?
And that's consistent. Well, people are rebelling against their pure nature.
So in the Aquarius age, people are rebelling. That's what they do.
They've corrupted. Look, there are secrets in this universe. There's programming. There's codes. And I don't think we'll ever fully understand it to a depth. Maybe we've untapped some of it. God knows best. But there's many secrets out there. Ultimately, though, I think what we are consistent with is the fact that death is inevitable.
Death and taxes, right?
Death and taxes, and death even more so. And so our belief is you have to work for that which lasts beyond your life. And that is
an emotional woman, right?
And a beautiful, righteous, supportive woman that doesn't need great
He's
hair.
obviously smarter than me, man. Touche, brother, touche.
My brother.
Before we go into more places that we differ, let's talk about some of the things that we actually agree on. I agree that people should not drink alcohol.
Yes.
Okay. I don't do it because the Quran says it. I do it because I believe people are weak under the influence of alcohol. I believe there's a lot of negative effects. I also believe that people can be possessed.
Yes.
When they have alcohol.
Yes.
I believe the
spirit. That's why they call it the spirit, right?
Spirit. Because
and I've seen the demon come out in people when they drink too much.
It makes sense that when people lose control of their own body, maybe some negative forces around them take over.
The jinn just take over, brother.
A lot of times I talk to people and the worst decisions they made, whether it be a woman who opened her legs to the wrong person, had a baby, ruined her freaking life, or a man who basically got in a car accident because he was being stupid and drunk.
Maybe
I've seen a lot of bad decisions come from alcohol. So I came to the same conclusion from my place and my perspective as you did when it comes to alcohol. Second, I am born in the year of the snake in Chinese astrology. To me, my enemy is the year of the pig. What that basically means is, guess what? I shouldn't eat any bacon.
Wow.
I shouldn't eat any pork. I shouldn't eat any ham. This is 20 years of research. So again, my perspective aligns with yours when it comes to this.